All right, we can go to the next slide, please. Welcome to today's community conversation. My name is Sean Hurley, and I'll be your community host. We're joined by Saul and Gigi today. Gigi is our special guest, and Saul is our ever-present Dynamo person. Community, well, let's go back to that last slide, please, Gigi. Community conversations are virtual meetups featuring expert speakers from across the community. Sessions range from deep dives, tips and tricks, and live demonstrations on products such as AutoCAD, Revit, Dynamo, Fusion, Alias in here, to roundtables, insight, emerging trends, all different experience levels. We're going to start to indicate more of those in our sessions going forward. Next, please. This is a fun one. We always have to read that any forward-looking statements we make about things we might want to do in the future, don't make any purchasing decisions based on those. Do it on the products as they are today. So just simple guidance. So we can make promises, but you can't hold us to them. Next, please. Just some ground rules. Everybody's line is muted to reduce the background noise and barking dogs. We invite you to turn on your camera where possible. Just kind of gives us a virtual in-person kind of event, not quite an AU in-person event coming in September, but close. To ask a question, oh, sorry, Gigi, back there, raise your hand using the Zoom function in the bottom right, or just type your question in the chat and we will get to those when we can. The sessions are always recorded, and a link to the recording will be posted to the event page, as well as in the YouTube Dynamo list. And they are usually by end of day. Next, please. All right, introductions. Again, I'm Sean Hurley, Autodesk Community Engagement Manager, geeky technologist in Bend, Oregon. Saul.
Hello everyone, so my name is Saul. I am the product manager for Dynamo moving forward, trying to drive its growth and evolution into the future, into all cool places. Describe myself as a curious human being and based here in Boston, Massachusetts. Jacob, as you'll notice, who's usually here, is not here this week. He is attending Built Anaheim in North America. Over to you, Gigi.
Yep, and I'm Michael Guenther-Geffers, called Gigi due to the amount of Michaels being around the world and also in Autodesk. I'm the manager of quality assurance and automotive, mainly responsible for ShotGrid and Alias. And yeah, I stole the curious from Saul and the efficiency from another one. So my personality is really, I do like inventing problem solving. I love this kind of stuff. I like to collect low-hanging fruit, and Dynamo has been one of those. And at some point in the past, I was an experienced designer responsible for the integration of Dynamo into Alias. This is where I gathered all my knowledge. And then I just started to write scripts in my spare time. I became kind of an expert, and now I'm invited to all kind of meetings to tell the world about it. So, yep.
All right, so today we have Gigi. So thank you so much, Gigi, for coming in and helping us with this session. Very excited to introduce Dynamo Talking to Alias today. It's session number 31 of our series. So if you haven't seen the Dynamo Office Hours series before, this is the 31st 1 hour-long session that exists, and there's a giant backlog of presentations on YouTube to go and look at if you want to, across all manner of base Dynamo interactions, as well as interactions with different hosts. And today it is Alias, so take it away, Gigi.
Happy to do so. Yep, agenda is as usually I learned for these meetings. First, I'll talk around about 20 minutes about the possible applications of Dynamo inside of Alias. Then I'll spend roughly around 20 minutes for a live demo, and then we'll keep the last 20 minutes for questions and answers. I'm a personal big fan of interactive sessions, so whenever you got questions, raise your hand, put them in the chat, and Saul is allowed to interrupt me at any point in time to directly answer your questions and hopefully provide you useful feedback. And with that being said, let's get started. So the Dynamo player application areas. So the first thing I found, and this was actually my first script inside of Alias. This is a different one. So the first application area is you got reoccurring shapes in your daily work. You always got to recreate. Like one example is like if you would be designing tires or stuff like that, shape is always roughly the same. You got sure, different dimensions, different threads and stuff like that, but the base object is always the same, so it makes sense for you to create a Dynamo script to give you a template where you just play with some parameters and get your at least a starting point, if not for tire might even be the final version. So creating Dynamo player scripts templates for recurring shapes make definitely sense. And this is one which a colleague of mine actually wrote, Kai, and he's been very successful. We got a lot of feedback. So a lot of people just use them to provide more real life visualization of their car model. It looks naked without tires, right? So they use it a lot in that area. Another example of a Nurbs template. So Alias has the text feature where you can type in text and it will give you curves. And I'm using those curves to extrude them, make a solid. The solid can also be optionally filleted, chamfered, or both. And for stuff like if you need text, quick text in your scene, which doesn't necessarily have to have Class A quality, this is a great way and quick way to do it. And this is actually the first script I wrote at that point in time. This is what I call Subdiv templates. So obviously in automotive, Alias is being mostly used in automotive. People create cars. And at some point in the past, we had speed form. People were struggling with subdivision surfaces to create like circular shapes. So we had there a tool to create wheel arches. And when we introduced Dynamo into Alias, I thought like, well, I mean, wheel arches, this is a rotation of a curve like to create the subdivision surface. I can do that in Dynamo easily. And then it was just like, well, now I got wheel arches. Can't I connect the front and back wheel arch? And so down, yep, that's possible. And then next question was like, can't I mirror it across to get the complete car and maybe even project the point of the Subdiv onto like a curve for the side silhouette? And it was all possible. So this is so far my most complex script I've written, and I'll demo it also later, probably shortly in the session. So by like only technical data, or optionally also 2 input curves for the width, length, and the side silhouette shape of the car. Just using these inputs, you hit a click, you get this subdivision body of a complete car, and you can control the amount of topology, so the faces from left to right, from front to back, or around the wheel arch all separately. So pretty cool, a good starting point for your basic shape if you want to start modeling a subdivision car. And then there are some kind of like mixed general templates. So this one you're seeing here, contractor has done for us. A lot of times, like in the beginning of a car design, you have like certain technical data, like wheel base and stuff like that, and dimensions for like max or min width of the car, height and length. So we wrote this template where you could put in the technical data and then you can work within the dimensions being displayed on screen. So it's like a visual guidance when you're starting designing. Next obvious low-hanging fruit for me was the T-Spline library inside of Dynamo. So every tool, so we're using T-Spline in Alias also for the subdivision tools, but every tool which we are integrating into Alias takes a certain amount of work for providing the infrastructure for like undo, redo, and all this hooking up. And by that, every single tool we introduce into Alias requires work. So some subdivision tools, like the Torus one, for example, weren't introduced in the beginning. So I was using then the T-Spline library inside of Dynamo to just hook those primitive tools up into Alias. And I will later also show like the Dynamo, the library I've created so far in regards of using the T-Spline library to provide primitive tools inside of Alias. This is a different one, the Revolve tool also. And in different application areas like the Sweep tool is also on the Dynamo side to create, like taking 2 curves and create a subdivision object out of it. But I offered it to users, and then I got like the first feedback on my Dynamo player scripts was that a person really liked this one, but they don't have the tools which they usually have for the Class A tool, which is the option to create the sweep at the profile position or at the sweep at the path curve optionally. And they also wanted to be able to shrink them with sliders, like, and so I took the Dynamo, the T-Spline tool on the Dynamo side, and I added those features the customer's been asking for, and now he's using it on a daily basis. He says it's his daily use tool in his subdivision repertoire. So that's great to hear. Another one is the pipe tool, which I've introduced into Alias, but then people asked like, hey, can we have the piping without capping? This wasn't possible in Dynamo, so I spent some time to identify the faces being responsible for the caps and cutting them away. Then a very typical application area, obviously, of Dynamo inside of Alias is like generative modeling for patterns. So this is a script, again, a colleague of mine, Kai, wrote, and then Florian Körnen has used it to create this kind of Subdiv hexagon pattern inside of his spaceship. You might have seen it. This is a creased version. So he's using the crease feature of the Subdiv hexagon script to create this kind of pattern. It also has like kind of non-linear scaling, like this one here. So this is the same script, but without crease and using an attractor point, all being available as a Dynamo player tool in Alias. Also, Kai wrote their Nurbs-based diamond pattern, which is looking like this, also available as a Dynamo player tool inside of Alias. And then when I kind of collected the low-hanging fruits and developed my casket, at some point in time, I was coming into, well, now we introduced a new feature inside of the latest Alias version, 2023, where it allows you also to delete the original input on the Dynamo side. And then, so with that, I started to really started developing tools like Dynamo, like full complete subdivision tools, which are not available on the Dynamo side yet. So here you have the orange two subdivision surfaces, and people had the problem that when they're coming together at the corner, this area was like kind of manually and cumbersome to create. So I wrote a script which takes the two subdivision surfaces, you select the edges on both sides, and then I'll create the intermediate shape here, displayed in green and yellow. And then I would merge them all together on the Dynamo side, send them back to Alias, and delete the original input. So you'll end up with one subdivision body. I can also demo that one live later. I also, with again, 2023 offers with a keep original input, because you can now delete the original input from Alias and bake back a new result. It is kind of a modification tool. So in 2023, or I think even earlier, there was a perpendicular align tool, which allows you to select the CVs of a subdivision, pull it onto a reference surface or a plane, and align it G0, and also align the next row of those CVs G1, and by that allowing you a symmetry. So if you mirror that one across, gives you a nice reflection lines. And I've updated this version lately to be a complete align, and I'll also demo that one live later. So again, the align tool, using one to align one subdivision body to another without adding any kind of topology. So pulling these CVs here onto, sucking them onto the reference target and aligning the next rows of CVs with an arbitrary angle. This one also was found high interest in the automotive industry. So if you have two subdivision bodies which originated from the same body, which means they have the same amount of CVs, faces, edges, then you can model them different, have different kind of shapes. And then I would use a Dynamo player script to, with a slider, allow you to travel from one shape to the other. So this was really highly appreciated by designers to have one slider, to have like more like 2/3 of design A and like 1/3 of design B, and being able to travel fluently with just one slider was helping them to making design decisions. Obviously, the next question you get is like, this is quite a restrictive, having the same topology. So I'm currently working on a more free script, which allows you to morph any shape. It is more difficult, but I think it might be doable. I'm currently experimenting in that one, and yeah, maybe more to come soon on that topic. Then a kind of creative application of Dynamo. We had a customer who wanted to provide us with some data to do like performance testing for us and also test our translators, but the data was confidential. So I wrote a script, Dynamo player script, which takes all the data and randomly scales it, moves it, and rotates it. And on this example, it would look like that. So no chance to, get any kind of new car design out of it. And you'll spend a lot of time if you want to reassemble this one here and trying to find out what rotation, movements, and scaling has been applied. So found that one quite interesting to have a non-regular application, I think, of Dynamo inside of Alias. Then Dynamo is a separate application which comes with its own like export-import capabilities, right? So it can read in Excel files and text files. So this could, for example, be used to derive the dimensions of the package data script I've mentioned before. So this one could be driven by any kind of Excel sheet, text sheets, and automatically update then your scene in Alias based on that. Comma-separated value files. This is an interesting application which a colleague of mine from the Red team at that point in time has done. So we had Alias, we do have Red, and Red has VR, and he was using a Python script to track his painting in VR in Red, and he was able to write out a comma-separated value file. And then I was able to read that one in real time into Alias. And so using Dynamo to read the comma-separated value file, create polylines out of that one, and then baking those into Alias. And with that, we had a live connection from a Red person painting in VR in Red, and an Alias person getting feedback on that one then in the Alias session. So it was quite interesting, quite creative way also to see how to connect our two products closer together using Dynamo. Then you might have seen demo. We are using like image read-in from Dynamo, and then reading out grayscale values to use those values to scale geometry. So it was used to control the size of these spikes you see here on this shoe. And currently my colleague Kai is working on a more generalized approach to create this image here and then use that one to scale, maybe even place geometry. So stay tuned for that one. And some near point in the future, you might see Dynamo player scripts and Alias for that. Then this is an example where a colleague of mine was working with Fusion and wanted to get like data exchange between Fusion and Alias. At that point in time, we didn't have the TSM data exchange. So TSM is the T-Spline data model on which the T-Spline library is using to save the T-Spline topology surfaces. So I was using Dynamo as a kind of intermediate application to be able to read T-Spline files from Fusion into Alias and backwards. Meanwhile, we've introduced this workflow completely in native Alias, but it's been a good example on how you're ahead of the curve, being able to use this one straight away if you know how to use Dynamo. You don't have to wait for development in Alias to catch up, right? You can just take action straight away. And then I also find like workflow improvements. Dynamo gives you freedom. Like you have a problem, you don't have to report it to Alias while you to Autodesk. Of course, you can do it, but waiting until Autodesk is taking account of that and is fixing it and putting out a release, and then you got to roll out the release in your company and install it and then see the solution. You can use Dynamo to solve small problems yourself. So here, this was a problem. The pivot point, center point computation in Alias always depends on the CVs and not on the actual trimmed surfaces. A customer of us was in the need of putting the center point into the center of the geometry to then also provide this information to NX. And so while they were asking our development team to do that, I could just write a script in Dynamo to do that computation myself, create that point, and find the center point of the trimmed geometry instead of the center point of the CV positions. And they could use it to solve the problem as a workaround directly. They didn't have to wait until this has been implemented in Alias and the next release has been rolled out. Another application area was where a customer was having like duplicate points, and it was very easy for me to take those points. So send the points from Alias to Dynamo, filter out the duplicates, and then only bake like unique points back to Alias. Also very easy to do. This one I show also maybe probably in my live demo later is a rim spoke generation where you could, so you're first of all, this is a two-step script. The first step of the script, you say like, okay, I want to create a rim. Give me some guidance geometry. So give me the center of the rim, give me the outer line, and create me the parting lines here to allow me to create one spoke within one of such sector. And it can also create you construction planes, which allow you to create symmetry either inside of this sector or towards the next sector. And once you have this guidance, you can then use, for example, subdivision modeling or different Dynamo scripts to create a spoke. And then you can use Dynamo to rotate this spoke around. And this is not the really powerful part. The powerful part is then like, if at some point later in the process, you want to have like the designer comes along, like say, I want like 10% or 10% less or more spokes. Yeah, you just drag the Dynamo slider and you get those spokes being scaled and rotated and duplicated that they still fit into the sector, which is, yep, pretty time saving. And with that, if we don't have any questions, I would jump over to the live demo. No questions so far? Okay.
No questions in the chat right now.
All right. So first, I'll talk a little bit about the things which are new in Alias 2023 with a Dynamo update we've got in there. And to do that, I will open the Dynamo Player tool. So in the Dynamo Player tool, we've integrated already earlier the Dynamo Toolbox button. This one is also available if you go to Help, Dynamo Resources, Dynamo Toolbox. They both, when being clicked, open this shelf. This is a non-editable shelf. You can see it's similar to the palette, which provides you visual access to all the Dynamo player scripts which we are shipping with Alias. Right? So all these scripts you see here, if you double click on it, they will be loaded. They are in your installation directory. So we've added 4 new features in Alias 2023, and I'll show you the first one here. The pattern toolkit has also been available new in Alias 2023, but this is not part of what I'm going to show you here. Is this pattern toolkit uses a package inside of Dynamo, and well, natively the people don't have that one installed. They need to install it to use this script. People don't know that, right? And who reads the online manual? My experience as a QA person is like a lot of people don't like to do that, which is totally fair, no judgment. But as this one here requires it, I'm using a new ability inside of Dynamo to be able to send messages to Alias. So I'm on the Dynamo side, I'm able to check if the package is installed, and if this is not the case, I'm sending a message to Alias, which says like, hey, the package pattern toolkit must be installed in Dynamo for the script to work. Both Alias and Dynamo have to be restarted afterwards. So how am I doing that? If I'm clicking on edit in Dynamo, this script will be opened in Dynamo and Dynamo will be brought in front. Always got to juggle some Zoom windows to be able to maximize Dynamo here. So the way I'm doing it is using a node of that package, which is called pattern point by randomize. If the package is not installed, this one delivers null. And then I'm using a call block to check, hey, is the output of this node null? If yes, I'm compiling a string and I'm sending this string as a send message to Alias. If the node doesn't provide null, well, then I'm making the string null. And if nothing is to be sent to Alias, this message doesn't show up on the Alias side. So this is the way I can control to check, is the package installed? If not, send this one to Alias. And because I do like this package and I think it's very useful, I might use it in my later demo, I will install it. So install this one and restart both Dynamo and Alias. Then I continue with my live demo. Still chat is happy and quiet.
So far, yes, but to take this opportunity, if anyone has any questions on anything they've seen today so far, please do sing out. More than happy to answer. I'm sure Gigi is too.
If not, I'll just continue. So the send to message was one new feature we've introduced in 2023. Another one is, so this is not adapted yet. So this is my car script. And I have my car script has several options to just create the wheel arches or half of a car, if you want to just create half of a car and then use layer symmetry to mirror it across, or if you want to do modeling on a complete car. So these are three options, which you don't have a good way to you didn't have in the past a good way to show those options in the Dynamo Player tool window. So it's all check options. Usually you would want to have a pop-up, right? One way in the past was to have an integer slider to have this three difference mode, but like who knows what 0, 1, or 3 or 2 or 3 means, right? So we've added now the ability to have pull downs here, where you can have like, okay, you can choose between different modes like grid, shifted grid. I'll demo this script also like later. So you have now the possibility of drop downs being controlled from the Dynamo side. You have radio buttons now inside of the Dynamo tool window. And you have the option to keep originals. I'll also show that one later. So I'll just show you how or maybe I'll actually open a file here to show you a little bit of the pattern toolkit, because I want to go into how we think what might found a solution, a general solution on the multi-surface patterning. Right. So our approach is kind of twofold. In the first step, you create a pattern like this point distribution pattern. And a second step, you're using our algorithms to place these points on multiple surfaces, just controlled by the placement of one curve, and then using those points to place geometry and optionally use those geometry to trim the input surfaces. So a question might be, okay, how do I get this point pattern here created? And this is where the pattern toolkit comes into place. So the pattern toolkit takes any kind of surface and allows you to create. I could have sworn I've installed it, right? Let's double check.
It did look like you installed it. While you're double checking, GD, there is a question in the chat. So David is asking, are any of those Dynamo Player tools making their way into the Revit version of Dynamo Player? And he also promises not to make any purchasing decisions based on the answer. So that's probably directed at me. And in that case, we are upgrading the Dynamo Player. You'll notice if you have Revit 2023 out that it looks a little different than it has done in the past. So that is mostly to get like UI parity with the generative design player. They actually share the same backends. So you can make upgrades to one, you can make upgrades to both, which is awesome. We definitely are going to go look to improve the way that you can engage with Dynamo content as time goes on. So similar to the way that Gigi and the Alias team have integrated into their own Dynamo Player, these kind of processes, we're looking to do something similar in terms of the Revit experience, just to make it easier and simpler for users to use. So short answer is yes. Slightly longer answer is can't give you a timeline on that one.
It is an interesting question. So something I want to evaluate during the next weeks and months is, so I'm writing basically subdivision T-Spline scripts here, right? What about other products in Autodesk which also have T-Splines and or subdivisions and Dynamo? Wouldn't they would like to have similar these scripts to be used also? So we got to look into how we maybe spread these scripts across. So let's see if
just before you go on any further, Gigi, one quick point is like for people who might not be using Alias in their daily life or format, if you've been to a previous session, there is a bunch of really awesome sample scripts that come from these other host products that you can use to learn from inside of the product you use, be it Revit or Civil 3D or other. So definitely the way that GG is working with geometry here is sort of mappable across to the way you could work with geometry in Dynamo for another host.
Right, and now I totally don't understand why the pattern toolkit is not being taken into account. So let me do quick stop sharing, and I will see if I have, talking about don't make any bias decision, I'll start on what is going to be in Alias update 1, and I'll just see, this just should be working. I'm just gonna make sure there's nothing in there you guys shouldn't see, but I don't think so. Right, going to dark color, opening the same. Sorry for that. To do some browsing here. Right, okay.
It's the joys of live demos.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to see. So I'll actually use this demo and then check on like what's not, yeah, why it hasn't been working through. I just deinstalled the package to show you how it's working, and now I'm not able to reinstall. Well, we will see why this. So hopefully, I think I have the pattern toolkit installed in this version. Let's see. Right, so. Okay, I will not show you the pattern toolkit. What I show you instead is, trust me, you can create point patterns on that, and with also extractor, scaling points, any kind of things you like to see. Assume now you have a pattern, and then you can, I'll load the latest version of this, and I'll show you how to apply this pattern now on multiple surfaces. So the way it's using is it's asking you like for a reference surface and your point pattern on that surface. Then it's asking you to create a simple, to select a simple curve, which is used then to control where to place the pattern. Then it will ask you on which surfaces to apply the pattern onto. And then it asks you to, what object to place. I'll take this Nurbs cylinder, but you can also take like open Nurbs objects or subdivision stuff. And as you can see now, these objects here, the object is taken. This pattern here is taken into account, and this curve here produces sections. Those sections are then used to create an implicit surface, and then this is used to place these cylinders here on those reference surfaces. So you can optionally align it also to the normal for the reference surfaces, right? So you can see now how the pattern adjusts. And now I can move this curve here to control the placement of those points on my reference surfaces. And obviously, like, if they fall into an empty gap, then they are cut away, right? And so I can just move it this one here around until they all fall off, or they're all here. I can also move it in Y. And I mean, here there are corner points where they might be on it or not. You can also see, like, if I'm deleting these points here, like, you can trim your reference surfaces with that. And to be added, very easy to do. I already edited in a different version of another script. It's like, scaling of your objects. What else? Attractor points, like, so scaling of the pattern, scaling of the objects are in different dimensions. All this, can be done. How are we doing time-wise? 5 more minutes. Any particular script anyone would like to see me to demo here? Otherwise, I can just continue to show you, like, the subdivision scripts, or maybe just use the. I'll show you how to create the spoke stuff. So I'm using the rim tool here, just hitting space several times using default values. And this is creating me like Nurbs topology, right? You can control like the inner radius still. Let's maybe make it smaller. And you can control like, hey, you know, I want to have, this was the wrong one. I actually got to check this slider here, right? You can make a decision like, okay, I want to model a spoke based on this sector count. You can choose to have the symmetry planes. If you're trying to create any kind of symmetry inside of this sector or to neighbored sectors, you can have the symmetry planes, which will help you, or you can switch them off if you don't need them. All right, so now I have my reference dimensions. So now I want to work in this vector here. I'm quickly creating a few curves. Nothing. Snapping to the first curve, creating a second curve, creating third curve. I'm using then, well, first of all, I will move these a little bit in. So they're inside of the spoke. I'm using the next subdivision. Hello, Jacob. Nice to see you joining. So I'm using this Dynamo Player 2 to create pipes out of this, right? These pipes are a little bit too thick. I like them to be thinner. So let's make them like, I don't know, 15. Yep, like this one more. And now I'm going to use the perpendicular align tool, which has been meanwhile being updated to a complete align tool, but let's stick to the stuff which is being released. So you can select this subdivision body. You can select the CVs you want to align. You select a reference surface, and then you see that they're, let's keep original off, auto update. And you can see that the points have been sucked onto the reference surfaces, and also their next lines have been aligned perpendicular according to the reference surfaces. So doing this one more time to align these here to that one, and doing this one more time to align these points down here to this reference surface. And then this shall be my spoke. And because I still have history, I can query edit this one here. And maybe let me just switch off the CVs here so we can better see what's happening. So query edit, the former result. And this one also allows you to have a selected subdivision body. So I'm doing that. I got to set my reference count to what I've been using here to create the spoke. And then it will take this spoke, it will rotate it, and let's use the original one, make it invisible. And now you have your spokes here, right? And at any point in time, if the designer says about, I want these spokes, I don't like them, I want to either model them, we can do that, change the shape, but we can also, this is the really powerful stuff, you can change now the amount of spokes being generated, right? And it will automatically scale those that they fit into their sector, which I find quite neat. All right, with that, I think I've reached the 20 minutes live demo. Unless anyone wants to see me doing anything else, we can open up for questions. And if there are none, I'm happy to demo on.
I would love to see the morphing one, Gigi, if you have that available.
Sure. See if I got a good example. Otherwise, I can quickly create two cars. Let me see if I got any wire file here. This is just yeah, not quite as impressive, but you'll get the idea, right? So we have two shapes here, two different subdivision shapes coming from the same object, same amount of faces and topology. And then you can use the morph object to select one body, select the second body, hit go. And I'm using their key position. So the object is created here in space, but I can have like, if I move the slider to 0 or to update on, you get the perfect shape of the first body. And maybe I'll use key position off to just see you like, just letting it travel to the other body. So it displays you visually on where your design is, like, going to the second one rather. Until if it's 1, it's completely this shape. 0, 5, it's right in between, and at 0, it's totally the first shape.
That's super awesome. I think it could be some really interesting application in the AC industry about space morphing.
Oh, yeah.
Just
I mean, is
sort
there
of
the
like form
ability
morphing.
to create each different phase in that, or you're going to have to create them individually?
Sorry?
So you just created the morph object.
Yep.
Is there the ability to create like 5 key point morphs, or would you have to do that multiple times to create the different?
With this script, you have to do it multiple times. So I did do it for another customer though. So the customer had a combination of what you've seen before. The pattern toolkit, they wanted to have one body and apply it on a grill. And then the bottom left corner, they wanted to have like it one shape, bottom top left corner, the second shape, and top right corner, a third shape. And they wanted all their, like, depending on some numbers, they wanted intermediate versions to being created on the way. And I've done that one. I don't have it at hand at that point, but I can share it. I could also like, demo it on YouTube if people are interested, but this is, so it can easily be done. I've already got a script where I did this to create all of this intermediate shape based on a number pattern.
Awesome. This is an awesome one.
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure. Gigi, is a
yeah.
question, the morphing, is this specifically because you're using Subdiv components, or is it mostly in Dynamo using points and translating those points?
It is, well, both. I mean, so it is easy for subdivision surfaces because you can just take their point positions and apply some vector math in between them. You could do the same though on a NURB surface. It becomes less exciting because having the ability to morph one NURB surface with roughly 2, typically in class A, a NURB surface has around like 10, max 20 CVs, right? And to be able to shift those 20 CVs to have like 2 different versions of one surface and being able to morph that one, I don't see this one being an exciting use case. I could write that one. It's totally easy to do. But for one single surface, it is not that exciting, right? But while the power of subdivision surfaces is that with one body, you can express a complete shape. And therefore, it becomes much more interesting to be able to morph between different shapes with having just one input body or 2 input bodies in this case.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and as mentioned, I'm looking into, so I'll just show you what my future task will be. I'm working on currently is for morphing to morph any kind of shapes. And here I have, so this will be my task to be done. So these are 2 subdivision bodies, different amount of faces, different amount of topology, and it will be my job to find a way with a slider to morph these 2. And I have an idea on how to do it, like having like different groups morphing to different other groups on the different other subdi bodies. So that's the idea on how to do it. Like letting the user control, hey, this amount of CVs, I want to morph those into this part of the other CV. And by that, allowing the user to have different groups of points moving to different positions. And once they are in place, scaling them, transforming them, and projecting them then onto the reference shape. I hope it gets me there. I'm not sure if it will. We'll find out in around about, I say, like 2 to 3 months, I'll know if this is working or not, depending on how much else I got to do.
Awesome. Very excited for that one.
So am I.
There's interesting applications for sure in the AEC industry when it comes to things like patterning, so brick patterning and so on, taking like a start point and end point and morph between the 2 as a potential different entry point compared to, say, like a gradient based like rotation of bricks or scattering of bricks.
Yep. So just showing you also what I've shown you in the demo. So imagine like, you have either one or several subdivision bodies and you have to like fill in the shape in between. So I wrote the tool to which allows you to select all these subdivision bodies and then you will have to select the first rail, except select the second rail, accept these, accept build. And of course, it's not working. I've seen this one, so sometimes it's not working usually. So I don't know why. And I got to find out, like, still got to find out. I couldn't debug it. Then I was trying to fix it and I couldn't see it. So
yep. Joys of software.
Yeah, currently it's not doing.
I blame it on Zoom. Zoom breaks everything.
I'm not sure, but now I'm not even, why wouldn't even fix that? And I was seeing a crash then, even so maybe we get another crash here when I'm just trying to reload the script, but I'm not sure why it wouldn't even allow it select me. Okay, so another meeting where this one doesn't seem to work. What else we've got? Also, I've been working on, which might be interesting for this. Maybe it's just showing you the subdiv align stuff. Right, so you have two different subdiv bodies, and I mean, usually if you want them to become one, you got to add a lot of topology here, and you could also use trying to use Nurbs functionality to match this subdiv to the other one, but then you're using kind of like your subdiv freedom. So I was implementing the subdiv align tool. That should be the latest version. So taking subdiv body, I need this one to have, wait a second, I need this one to have CVs on, obviously, okay. So this is the subdiv to align. These are CVs I want to align, and then I'm picking the reference body. And then if I'm putting in an angle like 70, so you can not only control, so first of all, you can control to only match G0. You can also decide to also match G1. And while G1 would mean in this case, it's getting flattened here on the surface. This is not very useful. It might be in other cases where you don't have a closed loop you're matching. But if you're putting like any angle onto it, like it may become useful again, right? At which angle do you want your mirror to go into the reference subdiv car. And then you also have the possibility to just match just G1, right? So keeping the gap you got and just aligning the next row of CVs to a reference surface might be useful if you want to create a certain gap. Yep, so this is a subdiv align to keep, not change any kind of, or any kind of topology to the subdiv being aligned to the reference. What else to show? Show the curve solid stuff.
So while Gigi's looking at other things, does anyone have any further questions on what I've seen today, or any generic questions on Alias and Dynamo and what the potential is there? Or any musings and thoughts?
So another tool currently working on is a make circular. I do know that something similar exists in Maya. And the base idea is the following. So you've modeled a certain kind of topology, and you expect that one to be either because it's closed or because you want to get a nice shape here to be circular. And this is a curvature plot on the current subdiv here, which is far from being circular or any kind of being nice. So I wrote a script which takes again subdiv, and here you got to select points, and you can use the shift middle mouse button to chain select This is a feature of the Dynamo player tool. So for points, we do support the chain select feature. And if I hit build, so this is now rebuild these points here. If I keep the originals, it might be, well, let's keep it off. And I'll just create now again, doing a curvature plot on these lower edges. So I'm going to locators, curve curvature. As you can see, now the curvature plot is much better now. Still could be improved. Still working on that one, doing a little bit better of a job of a matching, but just like already like tons better than what we've been starting from. Also looking into yeah, maybe allow you like having several sets of CVs all being aligned to several circles, but with the same center point. So you get a nice also CV distribution between of those is an idea on how to improve that one further. Right. What else is new? Wish I could I could show the pattern toolkit, but yeah, without a pattern toolkit being installed, that's difficult.
If you want to check, Gigi, you can go to your Windows and see if it did install.
Yeah, I mean, let's don't do QA bug work. So let's just show the car. I haven't shown yet. So this is, we've been using, so this is also Auto Design Studio blog story. So we're at last year, we tried to model a car in 50 minutes. And big part of that end result was using Dynamo in that part. So designing a car in 15 minutes is challenging, but giving you a heads up start is actually the car script here, right? So you're starting this one here, you're selecting just one curve for the side silhouette, you're selecting another curve, which is using it to define the width of the car, as well as the position of the front and back wheel arch. And you just hit go. And then within 3 seconds, you get a complete subdivision model, still having all kind of history, right? So if you say like, hey, from the front to the back, I want to start with fewer topology because I want to do some rough modeling first before making it more defined. So you can look here for the topology. So the amounts of spans from front to back, you can reduce them, for example, to 2. Let's auto update. Like you see, now you get for a few topology here, and let's say for the same reason, maybe you want to have like more spans from the left to right. Let's make this one 5. Yep, and now the side shape is not obviously the more topology you've got, the better you get to the shape of the curve. So let's increase the front to back one to maybe 6. And then if you're satisfied, then at any point in time, you can say like, okay, this is still got history. So if you want to move around this curve here to make it the car wider. All works. And at some point you say like, okay, you know what, now from here I want to start modeling, and then you're losing history. It wants you, and you can start the normal Subdiv modeling from there. So this was our starting point to create a car in 50 minutes, but yeah, that's another story. So I think we got 5 minutes left. Not sure if you want to switch over then to the closing part of the meeting.
Yeah, let's do that. This is very cool. And I'm assuming you'd use the tire generating tool from Kai to quickly create your 4 tires as well.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Awesome. So this is back to me. So thank you so much, Gigi, for that presentation. That was awesome. We have a bunch of other sessions upcoming. Again, so to recap, every 2 weeks we run these sessions on a variety of different Dynamo topics. Today, thank you to Gigi for Alias and Dynamo. So on the 30th of June, which is the next session, we have Dynamo talking to robot structural analysis and advanced steel. We've got 2 special guests for that. We have Thomas Fadala and Stefan Gumpert. Stefan would be 3 a.m. his local time. He's based in Australia, so he may be joining via video alone, but said he's going to try as well. So that should be really awesome. We're going to cover both of those over the course of an hour. We then have a summer break, so please go outside, enjoy the sunshine, and have some fun if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, hopefully you don't have too much cold weather outside. And then after that, we're going to do a session on the Dynamo Visual Refresh. So Dynamo looks and feels different, which is awesome. There's a bunch of new tools and cool things in there. So we're going to cover that in depth before we start jumping into a 3-part series on generative design. The first one kicking off is just using generative design, coming in from a fresh perspective, with a special returning guest of John Pearson on that one, with many more awesome things to come in the future too. Next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Back to you, Sean.
All right. Well, we got 2 quick slides here. And I do want to mention that there will be a survey when you exit here. Feel free to tell us what you would like us to do or what we can do better or any of that, any feedback for the hosts on topics. It's all useful information to us. You can connect and explore many of the different ways in the Autodesk community, including the global network of user groups, our industry-focused communities, and forums and Twitter. We have 2 blogs. The journal is by the community team. The Voices is actually by the customers for the community. So by the community for the community. And you, if you have an expertise in one of our products or industries, can be one of those authors. We do have a Dynamo blogger in there. So Dana to the Philippines. So let me paste a whole bunch of links for you here, helpful links. It also includes the event page, which is where we'll be posting today's recording, as well as the Dynamo playlist on YouTube, which is where it'll go as number 31. So a lot of good stuff there. So next, please. I gave you all the links, sorry. Next. Thank you everybody for attending and continue to stay connected with the community and hope to see you in the next one. Thank you, Gigi. That was fascinating.
Thanks, everyone.
And I'm not just saying that. I was thinking of all different ways I could use that stuff.
Yep, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to share scripts and knowledge.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Saul.
And thank you, Gigi, for presenting and Sean for hosting.
Thanks.
See you, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.